The sky above Kareth 9 did not crack all at once. It peeled, slowly, like something reconsidering its own existence. The soldiers on the ground stared upward as their instruments argued with reality, each screen offering a different version of what was descending toward them. One read atmospheric disturbance, another insisted on mythological error, and a particularly pessimistic device simply shut itself off. Then the dragon came through. It did not roar immediately. It looked around first, as if mildly disappointed by the planet's aesthetic choices, and only then exhaled a ribbon of heat that bent the horizon. On its back sat a man who leaned forward just enough to suggest he was paying attention, though his expression carried the faint irritation of someone who had arrived early to an unnecessary meeting. "I'm telling you," he said, patting the dragon's neck, "if this place has another gray sky and hostile welcome party, I'm filing a complaint with the universe." The dragon did not respond, which he took as agreement. Below them, the alien battalions reacted with disciplined efficiency. Lines formed, weapons charged, and a precise volley of energy fire surged upward. It was a beautiful attack, symmetrical and confident. It also missed him entirely. Not by much, just enough to be embarrassing. He tilted his head as the beams curved slightly past him, slipping into the air where he had been a moment before. "That seems unfair," he muttered. "For them, I'm fine with it." Far from the battlefield, she stood on a ridge that overlooked nothing and everything at once. The wind moved around her rather than against her, as though uncertain it had permission. Her long ears caught faint echoes of moments that had not yet settled into place, and she listened carefully, adjusting what she could without drawing attention. A fraction of a second here, a hesitation there. She did not force events. She persuaded them. Back in the sky, the man leaned sideways as his dragon spiraled through another wave of fire. "You notice that?" he said. "They're getting worse, or I'm getting better. I prefer the second option." The dragon snapped its jaws around a passing drone, crunching it with a sound that suggested mild approval. He guided it downward, cutting through the formation with deliberate ease. The ground forces broke rank as the creature landed, its weight pressing the earth into a reluctant agreement. He slid off its back, stretching as though he had just completed a routine journey instead of an impossible descent. "All right," he called out to the nearest line of soldiers. "Let's keep this simple. You surrender, I don't set anything else on fire, and we all go home with a story that makes us look good." They responded by firing again. "Worth a try," he sighed. The blasts came faster this time, tighter, more desperate. One grazed his shoulder or would have. At the last instant, the shot flickered, arriving just behind him instead. He paused, glancing at the scorched ground. "Okay," he said slowly, "now I'm starting to feel suspicious." On the ridge, she allowed herself the smallest smile, though her focus did not waver. The threads were shifting more quickly now, reacting to his awareness. She adjusted again, careful, precise. He turned his gaze upward, not toward the sky, but somewhere beyond it, as if instinct had begun to whisper in a language he almost understood. Then he shook his head, dismissing the thought with a grin. "Later," he told himself. "Existential mysteries can wait. I'm busy winning." The dragon exhaled another wave of fire, and together they moved forward, carving through the battlefield with a confidence that bordered on absurdity, while somewhere just out of reach, time itself leaned quietly in their favor. By the time the fortress moon of Elira tilted into view, he had stopped pretending the pattern was coincidence. Victories stacked too neatly, like someone had arranged them while he wasn't looking. He guided the dragon along the fractured orbit, watching debris drift in slow, silent arguments with gravity. "You ever get the feeling," he said, "that we're being helped in a very suspicious, slightly invasive way?" The dragon gave a low rumble that might have meant agreement or indigestion. The fortress did not wait for introductions. Its surface unfolded, revealing layered defenses that lit up the void with disciplined hostility. Beams lanced outward, precise and relentless. He leaned forward, preparing to dive. And then he hesitated. A strange certainty pressed against his thoughts, like a memory arriving early. He pulled back on instinct. A second later, a concentrated barrage tore through the exact path he had almost taken. "No," he said, blinking. "I'm not that good." The dragon twisted, avoiding another wave. This time he didn't react immediately. He watched, counted. There it was again. That fraction, that almost invisible delay in the attacks, as if something kept nudging events just enough to keep him inconveniently alive. "All right," he called into the empty expanse. "Whoever's doing that, I appreciate it, but it's starting to feel like cheating." Far below, on a narrow observation platform that clung to the fortress's outer ring, she stood among machines that refused to acknowledge her presence. Her long ears caught the echo of his voice, distorted across layers of time. She adjusted her stance, fingers brushing the air as if turning pages only she could see. "You noticed?" she murmured, not displeased. Above, the battle tightened. Defense drones swarmed, adapting, predicting. One slipped through, its trajectory perfect. He saw it too late. The dragon roared, twisting, but not fast enough. The impact never came. Instead, the moment fractured. For an instant, everything paused, not stopped, but reconsidered. Then the drone's path shifted by the smallest margin, passing harmlessly beside him. He exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said, pointing at nothing in particular. "That was definitely not me." He pulled the dragon into a steep descent, weaving through the outer defenses. The fortress reacted, sealing sections, redirecting power. It was learning. That made two of them. As they breached the inner perimeter, he swung down onto a narrow platform, boots hitting metal with a sharp echo. The air hummed with energy, thick and tense. He moved forward, blade in hand, the dragon circling above like an impatient storm. The corridors shifted around him, walls reconfiguring to trap, isolate, confuse. He stepped through one threshold and stopped, a flicker, a sensation. He had been here before, not metaphorically, not instinctively, exactly. The angle of the corridor, the hum of the systems, the faint scorch mark along the left wall, he knew what would happen next. He turned sharply. A blast tore through the space where his head had been. "Right," he said, nodding. "I definitely died here." Silence answered him, but not emptiness. He could feel it now, like a presence just out of reach, patient and precise. "All right," he continued, lowering his weapon slightly. "Whoever you are, we need to talk. Preferably before I don't die again." On the platform far below, she hesitated. Not because she couldn't act, but because she was deciding how much to reveal. The threads around him tightened, reacting to his awareness. Too much interference now could unravel more than she intended. He waited, glancing around the corridor with exaggerated caution. "I'm going to assume," he added, "that you're either incredibly helpful or incredibly bored. Possibly both." For a moment, nothing changed. Then the air shifted. Not visibly, not dramatically, but enough. He straightened, his expression sharpening as the faintest distortion settled into place before him, like a reflection that hadn't decided what it was reflecting yet. "There you are," he said quietly. And for the first time, the advantage he had never questioned began to feel like something else entirely. The distortion did not vanish when he stepped closer. It steadied, as if deciding to meet him halfway. The corridor around him flickered, not breaking, just briefly unsure of its own version. He lowered his weapon completely this time. "So," he said, exhaling, "you've been rearranging my terrible decisions." The air shifted again, and she appeared, not dramatically, not all at once, but like a thought finally committing to form. She looked human at first glance, but the illusion didn't hold for long. Her long ears caught the dim light, marking her as something that did not belong to a single moment, let alone a single world. "You were improving," she replied. "I only corrected the fatal parts." He let out a short laugh. "That's comforting. I'd hate to think I was entirely useless." Above them, the fortress trembled. Something deeper within it had noticed. Not the battle, not the damage, something else. The systems around them began to stutter, their patterns collapsing into erratic loops. She stiffened slightly. "They're coming," she said. "Who is they?" He asked, though the way the air grew heavy suggested he already knew he wouldn't like the answer. "The ones who notice when time is used improperly." He looked up as the ceiling flickered, revealing a brief glimpse of something vast and wrong pressing against reality, like a reflection that refused to match. He nodded once. "Of course they are," he muttered. "We win a few fights, and suddenly the universe files a complaint." The dragon's roar echoed through the structure, sharper now, uneasy. It landed heavily above, claws scraping metal, sensing the same presence. She stepped closer to him, her focus tightening. "I can't keep adjusting everything. They're tracking the changes, if I continue." "You'll make it worse," he finished. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he smiled, not with arrogance but with a steadier kind of certainty. "Good," he said, "then we stop cheating." She frowned slightly. "You'll die." "Eventually," he shrugged, "but maybe not today." The structure groaned as something tore through its outer layers. Not ships, not weapons, but distortions, peeling reality back in slow, deliberate motions. The soldiers outside had stopped firing. Even they understood this wasn't their fight anymore. He turned toward the open corridor, calling upward, "Hey, try not to eat anything important." The dragon dropped down beside him, its presence solid in a way everything else was not. It lowered its head, watching him. "No shortcuts this time," he added, resting a hand against its scales. "We do this properly." For the first time, she didn't reach out to adjust the moment. She watched instead. They moved together, man and dragon, not with impossible precision, but with earned instinct. The distortions lunged, warping space, bending paths, but he adapted not perfectly, not flawlessly, just enough. He ducked too late and still survived. He misstepped and corrected. Each moment held weight now, real and unaltered. One of the entities pressed closer, its form collapsing and expanding at once. It reached for him, and he didn't step back. Instead, he drove forward, trusting movement over certainty. The dragon's fire followed, not bending, not guided, just unleashed. The impact wasn't clean, wasn't elegant, but it was real. The distortion recoiled, destabilizing. Behind him, she watched the threads settle, not perfect, not controlled, but holding. He glanced back at her briefly. "See, slightly less impressive," he called out, but a lot more honest. She almost smiled. The pressure began to ease. The entities withdrew, not defeated, but no longer drawn. The fortress stabilized, systems struggling back into coherence. The silence that followed felt different, not forced, not maintained, simply allowed. He leaned against the dragon, catching his breath. "All right," he said, "I'm officially done with anything that watches me from outside time." She stepped beside him, her presence no longer hidden, no longer distant. "I won't interfere like before," she said quietly. He nodded. "Good, you can still help though." She tilted her head slightly. "How?" He grinned. "Try warning me before I do something stupid." She considered that, then gave a small, genuine laugh. "I can do that," she said. Above them, the fractured sky of the fortress moon began to clear, revealing the slow return of stars, unchanged, unbent. For the first time, he looked at them without expecting them to shift in his favor. And for the first time, he didn't need them to. They did not leave Elira immediately. For once, he didn't rush toward the next battlefield as if momentum alone could justify it. He stood at the edge of the repaired platform, watching the last of the fortress systems settle into something resembling order, while his dragon lay nearby, unusually still, as though even it appreciated a pause that wasn't stolen. "So," he said after a while, "we survived reality itself trying to correct us. I feel like that earns us a break." The dragon exhaled a slow plume of heat that did not destroy anything, which he took as enthusiastic agreement. She stood beside him, not distant now, not hidden behind fragments of altered moments. The air around her felt quieter, less strained, as if time had stopped bracing for her interference. Her long ears caught only what was present, not what might have been. "I'm still listening," she said softly, "just not changing." "Good," he replied, "because I'd like to try winning and losing like a normal person for a while. You know, for variety." She glanced at him. "You don't lose well." He considered that. "I lose dramatically, there's a difference." A faint signal pulsed across the platform, drawing his attention. The remaining alien command units had reactivated, not in defense, but in communication. A projection flickered to life, fractured, cautious. "You could have destroyed us," the voice said. "Why didn't you?" He shrugged lightly. "Because I already proved I could. Doing it twice feels repetitive." The silence that followed was less hostile, more uncertain. Finally, the signal dimmed, not as a threat, but as something closer to acceptance. He watched it fade, then exhaled. "That's new." "You chose not to conquer," she said. "I chose not to be boring," he corrected, though his tone lacked its usual edge. "There are enough ruins in the galaxy. No need to add another just to feel important." The dragon lifted its head slightly, watching him with an unreadable gaze. "Don't look at me like that," he added. "I can grow, occasionally." A soft vibration moved through the structure, not instability this time, but departure. The fortress began shifting its orbit, slowly pulling away from its previous alignment, as if deciding to exist somewhere less contested. He stepped back, gesturing toward the open sky. Well, that's our cue. They climbed onto the dragon together, no urgency in the motion. As the creature launched into the quiet expanse, he didn't lean forward with the same relentless focus. He sat steadier, more aware, less certain, and strangely more comfortable with that. For a while, they flew in silence. Then he spoke, not looking at her. How many times did you change things? She didn't answer immediately. Enough to keep you here. He nodded slowly. And now? Now I won't, she said. If you fall, you fall. He smiled faintly. Good, makes it feel like it matters. She studied him, as if measuring the difference between who he had been and who he had become. You're not afraid. Oh, I'm absolutely afraid, he said. I just don't need to pretend I'm not anymore. The dragon cut through a field of drifting debris, its wings steady, its path unaltered by unseen hands. Ahead, the stars stretched out, not shifting, not bending, just waiting. He glanced at them, then back at her. So what do we do now? No rewritten battles, no universe trying to erase us. Feels almost disappointing. She tilted her head slightly. We choose. He let out a quiet breath, then nodded. All right, let's choose something interesting. The dragon surged forward, not toward a war, not toward a correction, but toward something unknown and unforced. And this time, neither of them tried to change what came next.